Hey, Tony, fuck 'em.
Hello, friends. I'm glad you could join me. Today we're going to talk about what really grinds my gears. What grinds my gears today is that I knew I was going to be wrong about this decision. I knew that this is not what the 14th Section 3 said. I knew that it was going to be a unanimous decision, but I decided to tell my audience different. Wait, that's not me. That wasn't me. That was this guy. Oh, man. I know. I'm going to make people mad from running laps and say, I told you so. But I told you so. I told Glenn. But you know what's funny about that is that he's coming around. He's really coming around. He even stole my content, which I'm happy about. I know a lot of people would be like, Tony's mad that Glenn stole his content. No, I am very happy that he's stealing my messaging. It is the messaging that needs to be stolen. As a matter of fact, the more people who steal it, the more commentators and influencers who steal the messaging would be great. I've changed the camera angle. What do you think about changing the camera angle? People on the Sunday Rant last night, the Patreon-only Sunday Rant, really mad that the dick shadow's gone over here. There used to be a dick shadow here, and I changed some stuff around, and they were really upset. So I tried to put Muhammad Ali back in the shot. So I've kind of changed the angle a bit. I hope you guys like it. Something new, because you're not going to hear different messaging out of me today, because the messaging is, hey, get off your fucking ass. You're his jury. Get ready to be this motherfucker's jury. All the way up and down the ballot. Spare no expense and no position. That's right. Vote Democrat all the way down that motherfucker. That's the chance you got here. That's the shot you got. I know a lot of people are like, no, Nikki Haley's got a chance. She's got a chance. So you're saying there's a chance. Give me a fucking break, man. She won D.C. Like, literally the entirety of the Republican Party's policy is going to be to upend the deep state with Project 2025. Basically, replace the entire city of Washington, D.C. And you guys thought that they were going to vote for Trump? That's funny shit. It's funny shit. It's really funny. It's like, sheep voting for wolves and shit. Like, yeah, we're going to vote the wolves into our flock. Let's let the wolves in. It's totally cool. They totally won't eat us. No, they're going to eat you. The wolves are going to fucking eat you, man. They're going to fucking eat you. Stop it. Stop voting them in. But folks in Washington, D.C. are like, yeah, I kind of like my job. Because that's the thing that a lot of fucking boneheads on the right don't really say, is that there's a lot of Republicans that work in the federal government. And the reason why is because there's Republican presidents that ultimately set forth the bureaucracy, and that bureaucracy ends up hiring career bureaucrats. And a lot of times, most of the time in Republican administrations, they vote or they appoint conservative people to hire that bureaucracy. Like, that's one of the main points of why a party wants to hold the executive branch as much as possible. I don't know if you know that or not. I know that that's getting kind of in the weeds of government, but that's literally how it works. Like this morning, how the Supreme Court works, it totally eludes dipshits like Keith Olbermann. Now, I'm a fan of Keith. I've spoke about how I'm a fan of Keith. I used to watch Keith when he was on MSNBC on The Countdown, which was like fucking 15 years ago and shit. The worst person in the world, right? But listen, this is the dumbest take ever. Like, there's some bad takes. There's going to be some really shitty takes on this stuff. Glenn is very smart. Glenn is sticking with the fuck 'em fam messaging for the most part. He is getting off track a little bit. He needs to continue to listen to the show. He'll catch on to the messaging. But Keith Olbermann says that Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson don't have reading comprehension. Like, this is wild stuff to watch Keith Olbermann disparage Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson. Like, all you had to do if you didn't want this to happen to yourself, right? Like, be so wrong about the 14th Amendment, because these people were dead wrong. They were dead wrong. They were dead, not only in messaging, but in like what the 14th Amendment says and what it's for. I mean, I tried to avoid all these arguments because I didn't want to make people look so ridiculous, but the states don't have the fucking right to tell the federal government that they can't have someone on a ballot. And the 14th Section 3 doesn't take people off the ballot, it removes them from office. And so you actually have to hold an office to be removed from it. So it doesn't really apply to the ballot as much as you think it does. And that's basically what they said this morning. Reading the decision. Now, Sotomayor and Kagan and Jackson, it was a unanimous vote to keep Trump on the ballot. Pretty much how it was going to work. But here's the thing, is that the majority, because Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson did dissent, but their dissent was more about how much of advocates the other justices were for Trump himself, for him specifically. And that's really the danger here. And this is the reason why I said I did not want this Supreme Court making this fucking decision. That's why you don't want these motherfuckers touching decisions, because they're fucking corrupt pieces of bought garbage. Okay? You really don't. I mean, as much as you want them to make decisions, you don't want this Supreme Court making too many crucial decisions. It's a thing you probably don't want. And one like this, and the immunity one, is probably not ones that you want. The other ones that you don't want is, like, when they're making decisions to take away women's rights to healthcare, right? Stripping them of bodily autonomy. Decisions like that, you probably don't want this Supreme Court really to touch with a 10-foot pole. Now, Keith wants to disband. He wants to get rid of the Supreme Court. Wild shit, man. That we have people in the pro-democracy coalition. They're like, look, the Supreme Court's killing our democracy, so let's just kill it. Let's just murder it then. What? Like, okay, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here, right? Like, oh, the bathwater's dirty. Fuck that baby. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really do that. That's not a thing. That's not a pro-democracy message. It's just not. And that messaging sucks. And really what's going to happen is the right wing's going to help, or it's going to help the right wing with their messaging, is what you're going to do. So what you're going to do, right? And I told you guys that from the beginning, when this Supreme Court decision, or the Colorado Supreme Court decision, came down, where they wanted to take Trump off the ballot, but they didn't really want to decide. They wanted the Supreme Court to decide. They should not have punted it. They shouldn't have punted it. They should not have done that. It's a really dumb decision to punt this decision. Because now we're in the situation that we're in, where he's still on ballots because he was going to be, because that's not what the 14th Section 3 is about. It's about holding office, not running for it. Get it in your mind. Get it straight. And now it's really set in stone. Because now you're going to have a tough time convicting it, or you're going to have a tough time taking him off the ballot, even if he's convicted. So some people are saying there isn't an ideal solution. Yeah, there is an ideal solution to keep us safe from the Supreme Court. And the reason why we have this decision this morning, the reason why liberals are mad, and the reason the reason why we're going to be so pissed off about these Supreme Court decisions is because we didn't do our job. It's democracy, folks. It's fucking democracy. There's consequences, right? For every fucking election we go through, there's consequences. Every one of them. And the reason why we are getting upset at the Supreme Court isn't because we need to pack the court. It's packing right now. Like Joe Biden has gotten more federal judges on the bench than any other president before him. They're packing the courts. They're packing it. The problem is that we knew there were lifetime appointments for these seats. There was lifetime appointments for these seats. That's how it works. And there's not going to be any pathway currently in 2024, even after Joe Biden is elected again. There's not going to be a pathway for the Supreme Court to be changed. There's not an appetite for it. And the reason why there's not an appetite for it is because the powers that be are using the court to pass their fascist little ideas. Okay? They stripped the Voting Rights Act. They stripped away women's right to health care, right? It is likely that they will hear an embryo case. A frozen embryo case. This Supreme Court is likely to hear a frozen embryo case. There are consequences for our actions and our non-actions. The reason why the Supreme Court is the way it is because we didn't do our job. Now, we've been doing it since we didn't do it, right? We kind of had our head up our ass in 2016 as a whole, not like me and you, but like as a country. Now, ever since 2016, when the fentanyl Führer put 3 fucking fascists in that stripped away women's rights, people are like, oh, that's why we should really fucking pay attention. Think of it. Just think of it. Think of it. If we didn't have, and really honestly, this is why Mitch McConnell thinks that he's a history maker, which he is. He's just not going to be remembered the way he thinks he wants to be remembered. I mean, the Nazis will love him. The country's going to hate his fucking guts. Just imagine if Mitch McConnell had any kind of fucking shame in him at all, right? Just a fucking drop of shame in him. Merrick Garland wouldn't be the Attorney General today. He'd be a Supreme Court Justice, right? It is likely that Donald Trump would have only gotten Brett Kavanaugh. And it's more than likely that he probably wouldn't have picked Kavanaugh. He probably would have picked Gorsuch. And it is even more likely if Mitch McConnell had even a drop of shame that we wouldn't have Barrett on the court. Joe Biden would have had his pick, which probably would have been Jackson, and then there would have been another pick, right? That's what our Supreme Court would look like. But we don't have a Mitch McConnell that has shame. That's not a thing. It doesn't exist. Mitch McConnell has, Mitch McConnell has no shame. None. Just like he has no ability to tell us he's not having mini strokes. Glitching like a son of a bitch. But this is not a situation where it is the court's fault, right? This is not Kagan's fault. This is not Sotomayor's fault. This is not Jackson's fault. And really, honestly, any Supreme Court that would have read the 14th Section 3, and not been so goddamn deranged by Trump, like TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, if you would read it, you would know that you shouldn't apply it differently because it's Trump, and you would apply it to offices, not ballots. That's the thing. That's all I want. That's all I want. I mean, yeah, do I hate that motherfucker? Listen, I haven't hated a lot of things in my life, but I hate that motherfucker. And this country hates that motherfucker. They hate that motherfucker. Republicans hate that motherfucker. Independents, women hate that motherfucker. Kids hate that motherfucker. Black people, brown people. There's a lot of people that hate that motherfucker. I would say that a good percentage of the country, 70, hate that motherfucker. Yeah, I'm talking about Trump. Hate that motherfucker. Not Mitch. I mean, Mitch, you can probably look for 89, 90% of the country hates that son bitch. That's probably more accurate number for Glitch McConnell. Excuse me, Mitch. But why would we, just because of our hatred of him, why would we change how we do things? We definitely 100% for sure should not change what we're going to do because of Trump. Right? Maybe we go a little extra because of him, but why would you want to bend the law and the logic of the law just for him? That's what he wants. He wants you to do that. That's the entirety of his argument for the immunity. That's why he's going to lose that case. He's going to lose that case, just like he won the 14th Amendment. And that's the other thing that the 14th Amendment people are doing. And it was Republicans in this Colorado case. Let's be clear on that. It was Republicans that brought this case because it was a Republican primary ballot. So Republicans were the only ones that had standing in the court, right? But these were never Trump-style Republicans. And they brought this case in Colorado to try to keep him off the ballot using the 14 Section 3 when it says nothing about a ballot. It says about holding an office. Now, you have to go through a ballot to hold an office, but you don't always. That's why the 14th Amendment Section 3 isn't that clear about Trump and isn't that clear about a presidential ballot, because you don't have to be elected, okay, to hold office. You don't. You don't have to be elected to hold office. Just go ask any appointed U.S. senator that is appointed by a governor when someone dies, when a U.S. senator dies. Just go ask them. Go ask them if they need to be elected to a seat, to an office, to hold an official office. Oh, but Tony, that governor's elected. Yeah, I know. Go ask a judge that's appointed and confirmed by the Senate, a federal judge. Ask if there was a ballot measure that appointed them to that seat. They can still be impeached. They can still be removed. They can be 14th too. So if you're going to apply your logic in one spot, right, and you're gonna pick a position, you better pick the position. It's the reason why this morning Keith Olbermann's argument is so stupid, right? Is because Keith Olbermann put himself in a position to have to defend his stupid idea. The idea being that if the Supreme Court doesn't take Trump off the ballot, our democracy is dead. It's a really stupid idea. It's dumb as shit. It's dumb. And you look like a pussy when you say it, right? You look like he's beat you. You look like a weakling. Like there's no room left to fight, that he's already won. You might as well just hand over the democracy to fucking fascists. Well, I ain't going to do that. And I definitely am not going to make myself look like that either. And neither should the pro-democracy coalition. And the only reason why I bring up Keith Olbermann is because Keith is a lefty, right? I mean, he's got, some good commentary most of the time. This is not one of them. This is really stupid. It's really dumb. It's the reason why I continue to tell you the truth about the trial, that there's not going to be a trial. Speaking of trials and court cases, Alan Weisselberg has pled guilty to perjury. Now, does this mean that Alan Weisselberg? That was some of my first commentary on Weisselberg when I first found out who Weisselberg was and why it was going to be so important in the political commentary. Is I said Weisselberg is no longer known as Weisselberg; he's known as Weisselfucked because he's completely fucked. He did not have choices here, and he chose he does have choices, but he chose to perjure himself. Now, my guess is that this is probably going to change because he's pled guilty to this perjury. He was arrested. He pled guilty. This might change the trial, the Manhattan DA's trial. Now that he's pled guilty, why wouldn't he become state witness? Does that mean they'll delay it? Does that mean the Manhattan DA needs more time? I don't know. I don't know these things. My guess is probably yes, which means that there'll be a delay, which means you're not going to get the trial you want when you want it. Again, stop doing that shit. Stop making it to where someone else is going to save you. Someone else is going to save our democracy. Stop doing that. Stop having that narrative. And stop bitching, moaning, and complaining and boo-hooing when it doesn't go your way when you knew it wasn't. Okay? I'm sure there's a lot of the 14th people who were like really mad at me. And I told you months ago that this is going to be a long, hard couple months until we get to March. I said it in January. I'm like, look, I know it seems shitty now that I'm attacking Glenn. I'm attacking the 14th people. I'm attacking the people who want him to go to trial. Like, like it felt like I was just beating that drum and people are like, man, Tony, it's getting tiring. But I said, just hang there with me. Just hang in with me. Just hang in with me. Just hang in there with me. I'll be right. It's going to happen that way. And then we'll get to the business of fucking beating these fascists in November. Because that's the business we really need to get to, isn't it? And by we, I mean us as the pro-democracy coalition, people who really give a shit, people who are paying attention. So what we really need to get to is beating these motherfuckers in November. And I know there's a lot of topics, there's a lot of subjects. There's a lot of heartache going on around the world, right? People fucking starving in Gaza. Ukrainians not being able to receive aid to fight back the fascist regime of Putin, the murderous, dictatorial, authoritarian regime of Vladimir Putin coming into their sovereign democracy and trying to take it over. And they won't stop at fucking Ukraine. They're going to go he's going to go right to Poland. And they'll probably hand it over if NATO doesn't stand in the way. And I get that the administration is making it very obvious they're trying for a ceasefire, but it's a very complicated issue, and it's very hard for America to insert their will into another sovereign democracy that has elected a fascist piece of shit like Bibi Netanyahu, who is letting people fucking starve in Gaza. I get it. There's women here that are dying because they can't receive health care. Young children that are being forced to carry pregnancies to full term because Republicans are fascist pieces of shit. Americans are suffering because of food prices and income is low. Because we can't pay attention to these issues. Because the moment we take our eyes off these Nazis, these fascists, you don't get to decide what the fucking wage is. They're going to take it all away from you. I get that there's a lot of serious issues to get to. There's a lot of issues for our country to really solve here. And I believe we will get those solved. I believe in time our country will be better. 10 years from now, 15 years, 20 years from now. But right now in this moment, in this very moment, March 4th, Monday, March 4th, 2024, There's only one thing that should matter to the pro-democracy coalition. Only one. And that's how to get as many of these fucking Republican fascists out of our governments as possible in November. Period. And if we got to mock Donald Trump and use Donald Trump as their cult leader and use the hatred that the country has for that motherfucker and the reason why they want to go vote against something, fine, use it. But over the weekend, there was so much Trump crack over his glitches. Speaking of glitches. And him not being able to read a teleprompter. Oh, the Trump crack was on high, man. Jesus Christ, I couldn't go through my Twitter feed. It was the same goddamn clips. The same 4 clips of him mispronouncing a word or missaying Venezuela. Trump crack. Listen, folks, if you get distracted by shit like that, America is not going to vote against Trump who can't read out loud. You know that, right? They'll vote against Trump who wants to be dictator for a day and wants to send people to concentration camps, staging areas. They'll vote against that shit. They'll vote against Donald Trump saying, you goddamn right I took women's rights away. We crushed Roe v. Wade. Fuck you. They'll go vote against that. That's one they'll get in line for. They're not going to get in line because dude farted. All right? They're not going to get in line because dude can't say Venezuela. They know he can't read. They know he's fucking dumb. They know it. And I get it. They're doing it to show that, oh, it's just as bad. He's just as old as Biden. He's just as old. Yeah, but that's not the choice we have. The choice we have isn't Joe Biden old dude and Donald Trump old dude. That's not the choice we have. It's not, is Joe Biden mentally capable and Donald Trump wasn't ever mentally capable. That's not the choice we have, folks. They are literally right now, they have a website going. I don't know if you know this. They have a website going where they're recruiting Nazis to be in our government if Trump wins. That's what they're doing. Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation has a website that anyone can go to, put in their credentials and say, I'm a Nazi. I want to be part of the Nazi regime. And they'll be like, okay, cool. You're going to get to be part of the Nazi regime. We'll vet you that you're a fascist, but yeah, you're going to do it. And Sycophants has it right. Old ideas, new ideas. That's the thing. That's what we need to go on. That's how we need to fucking make sure that we save our democracy. Is give this country a choice, a real choice, not some bullshit choice. Not some bullshit choice. Real choice. And the choice is democracy or autocracy. That's your choice. Democracy or autocracy. That's your choice. Not old dude versus old dude. No. One of the old dudes wants democracy. One of the old dudes wants to go back to 1930s style Germany in this country. That's what he wants. Old ideas, new ideas. That's your fucking choice. And it's going to be on the fucking ballot. It always was going to be on the fucking ballot. He was always going to be the fucking nominee. Nikki Haley ain't got a shot in hell. I don't care if she won D.C. or not. D.C., the only thing it tells me is that it's going to scare the shit out of the fentanyl, fear her. And we can use it as a weapon. And we can use Nikki Haley as a wedge to draw down in between Republicans. Because ultimately, she's going to concede the race after tomorrow. Tomorrow's Super Tuesday. Remember, today's the trial date. Oh, I just forgot. Oh, we're going to have to go to break. But I'm so excited. Donald Trump's going to go to trial today. It's March 1st. It's the trial. It's trial. Don't go anywhere. We'll make sure if we got a trial, we don't have a trial when we come back.